want to introduce my Uncle Bob Watts. He is the one that organized this over 5 years ago. We were talking about this. We had a reunion when it was the anniversary of Kaloa Town, 1835 to 150 years in Kaloa Town, wasn't it?
1985.
1985.
So 7 years ago.
7 years ago, that's right. My goodness, so it's, time flies. Why don't you give a little bit of how you got everything organized together to get all these people, because you did a lot of work for this.
Well, we thought about it 7 years ago with our local family reunion.
Right.
As being the 150th anniversary of the arrival of Dr. and Mrs. Smith to Kaloa.
That's 1985, that's right.
They arrived in 1842.
Right.
And so their 150th would be this year, 1992. And it would have also been Annie Marge's and my 50th wedding anniversary. So it was a combination, but unfortunately, we only have half of the celebration.
Right.
So they started with that, and then about 3 years ago, I thought, well, I should, if people wanted to come out here, especially from the mainland, it costs a lot of money, I should get them to thinking about it.
That's
so
right.
I sent them a postcard asking them who was interested. And there were quite a number, and so I kept sending them postcards every 6 or 8 months since that time, giving them a little facts and history of the family and trying to work up a little interest in coming, and a great number have responded.
Well, I was amazed at the number of people that came. I know the Mary Hartwell, who was a classmate of mine, came all the way from Massachusetts with all her family.
From Maine.
From Maine, Maine, that's right. Maine, there you go.
A little farther, not too much, but a little farther.
But it's, well, I mean, Kendall came from Maine.
Right.
Massachusetts, he came from, right?
Yeah.
But Uncle Bob, there was, how many people finally have we ended up with? About 170?
Well, we have 173, including the spouses.
That's wonderful.
And we couldn't do without the spouses,
That's right. And lots of progeny.
We wouldn't be here without the spouses, as a matter of fact. Okay.
Okay, is there anything that you particularly want to say, other than we can thank all these people for coming?
Well, we're very happy that everybody is here, and actually it was great.
But we particularly all want to thank you, Uncle Bob, for making this possible. This would not have happened without you. You've been the guiding light, and you've the inspiration, and I know that you've financed a great deal of this to get it going. I mean, you've underwritten anyway.
Well, most of it is, is self-supporting, so that's not a big problem. But
we hope they all buy videos of this.
A lot of help. Bobby Waterhouse is putting in Bill.
That's right.
This, along with the other, for those of that Waterhouse family, are putting on the party tonight. Kathy Nishida and her group from Kaloa Union Church are putting on a luncheon tomorrow after, Friday after the memorial service. And then the congregation, the women of the congregation of the Haole Huia Church in Hanalei are catering the luncheon for our trip out to Hanalei tomorrow. So we've had a lot of assistance.
Sure. And then we'll have the luau down at the Waiohai, is that right?
The luau will be Saturday night at the Waiohai.
Yeah.
And then also I'd like to mention that Carl and Catherine Lowe have made, you don't have them this evening, but after the memorial service, we'll be given a sheet that gives a walking tour of Kaloa Town, and also a little history of the Kaloa family,
terrific.
The Kaloa Smiths. And they put that all together, and I have a great deal of appreciation for the work that they've done.
Sounds great. Uncle Bob, thank you very much. I know the whole family is indebted to you. You have been our guiding light over the years, not just for this one project. And I know that, no, you really have. You've been,
dim light sometimes.
No. You can ask each of the 11 grandchildren, including your 2 boys, and I remember young Bobby used to call you Uncle Bob because we all called you Uncle Bob. Finally realized that you were his dad, so years ago. So.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Truesdale, and I'm from Bath, Maine, and this is my cousin Paul Weissard. And my husband and I flew out here and picked up our 3 boys on the way just to come to this family reunion for a lot of different reasons. We're glad to be here.
I'm Paul Weissard. I'm from Honolulu, and shortly to move to one of my favorite islands, Maui. Lived in Honolulu all my life, and same reason, came over to see what this was all about, and we knew some cousins were coming. It's been great, and I give a lot of credit to Bob Watts for putting this together. It's a fantastic show.
We also wanted to know more about Lottie Lee, maybe from some of her descendants that we haven't met yet, because we have a new friend who's doing a book on my great-grandpa, Alfred Stedman Hartwell I, and Lottie was his bride. We know she was very spirited because she left George Wilcox at the altar when she flew to Honolulu 1 week to meet great-grandpa and married him directly. So, but we don't know much more about her, and we want to.
Alfred Stedman Hartwell was a fantastic person. He led black troops in the Civil War as a young officer, was very dedicated to what we know as civil rights today, but in those days was abolition, and put his money where his mouth was, and went out there. Then later on received a law degree from Harvard, was invited to come out here by the Kingdom of Hawaii as to serve as Attorney General and to serve in the cabinet, to work for them, at which point he met Lottie, who had come over from Kauai, and they were married, and so it's gone from there. This person that really wants to check out the Civil War background and the what happened after that, we'll be out here in September and doing some research and talking to all of us. We're really very excited about it, so there we are.
That's it. And we're glad to see our family again, the ones we know, and we're looking forward to seeing the ones we don't know. And I want to thank Cousin Bob so much for this wonderful party and this wonderful time for all our families.
Yeah, we have all of my first cousins except Ash are here from that side. My mother and Mary's father were the only 2 in that particular family. And so I'm here, my sister's here. We're missing one of my sisters and her brother, and that's all we've missed. Otherwise, that whole thing is complete.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
This is my first cousin once removed, my mother's cousin, Dorothy Smoker, and she has a very interesting life, and she knows a little bit about our family. We'd like to know a little bit about where you were coming from when you got here. I know that you spent many years in Africa, and you've come back to the islands many times. Mm-hmm. Your father was my grandfather's brother, mm-hmm. and we're here really about the Smith family, and so that would be great-grandma. You must have some stories about great-grandma.
Oh, yes. When I first...
You have a mic right there.
Oh, when I first really got to know great-grandma, my grandma, that's Lena Waterhouse, Lena Smith Waterhouse. Right. They were living at 585 North Marengo in Pasadena. And I was just a little kid coming in from Japan. My parents were missionaries in Japan. And we stayed at 585 with them because we didn't have anywhere else to go. And she drove she had an electric car, a four-seater, and she drove it, made no noise at all, and she could go all over town. Grandpa was gone most of the time.
Was he mayor of Pasadena at that time?
Not at that time, but he had been. He had been in 1905 and 6. And he was a very successful mayor and is still greatly praised for having fought the Edison Company.
But I remember though that
And
Aunt
started
Madeline
it.
was so concerned about that electric car because he was a bad driver, and here he was mayor of Pasadena, and they took his driver's license away.
But she was a good driver.
But then Grandpa would drive that electric car down the sidewalk, and we kept, and Aunt Madeline could say, "I can just see the headlines now: Mayor of Pasadena dies in electric chair."
The family was so full of jokes.
Oh, it was.
Grandpa would come down in the morning to breakfast and say, "I was up all night." We said, "Oh, Grandpa, upstairs." And on, this kind of,
He was a rascal. He was the youngest, and he was full of beans.
He was very full of beans.
Because I know my mother identifies very strongly with him. She identifies, and she would like to be just like him.
We all loved him.
He was always way ahead of time. I don't know how I could possibly be related to him, because
None of the rest of us are.
Grandma was always late. I took after Grandma. I must be the Smith side, not the Waterhouse side.
Grandma was she was a wonderful influence on him.
Yes, she
Because he
was.
adored her.
Yes.
And she was so calm and always bringing the family in to sing around the piano. They had some wonderful old songs they sang.
There was a time, I don't know exactly, I kept thinking she was watching him play when he was at Punahou, but I don't think Grandma was at Punahou.
Grandma?
Yeah, because what it was, she used to watch him play soccer somewhere up in the. She would watch down, and she had her cap set for him when she was quite young.
Well, you know how he got over into their school, to the Dr. Dole school
That
in
must have
Kauai?
been where it was.
He was a naughty boy. This is Grandpa.
Yes.
He was a naughty boy in his own school in Honolulu. And the teacher wrote a letter to his father and told him that he had been very naughty. And Grandpa was going to really give him the what for, but John Waterhouse, Willie's older brother, said, "Dad, listen to Willie's story." So Willie told his story, that he hadn't meant to be bad. He didn't know he was doing bad. And then John Thomas came up to the teacher and gave her, in front of everybody, gave her a bawling out. So he was expelled from school. And then great-grandpa John Thomas Waterhouse had to do something with Willie. He sent him over to Kauai to Dr. Dole's school. And that's how
he met Grandma.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
there was a purpose in his being kicked out of school. I think that was Punahou that he was kicked out of.
Was it?
Because I know that he went, because when we went to Punahou, we were legacies from whatever's.
But he didn't graduate there.
No.
But he did from Dr. Dole's school.
But one of the, from way back, there was some Waterhouses or Smiths or Rices or somebody that were at Punahou way back.
Oh, I'm sure there were.
But Grandpa, there's so many wonderful stories. But